Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to be talking about ZStack. So ZStack is another container view which is used to lay out views in a certain way. Now you've learned about VStack and HStack, including the lazy versions of themselves. Now next comes the ZStack. ZStack actually works a little bit different from previous two container views. ZStack actually lays out its views on ZStack, which is basically the depth-based or the space in 3D. Okay, so things are stacked on the top of each other on the Z-axis. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this actually stacking works before we actually further talk about the properties of ZStack. Okay, so we're gonna start by creating a ZStack, and we can create a ZStack by simply saying ZStack, and notice that ZStack does not contain any spacing parameter, because in 3D space it doesn't make sense to have spacing because that's not a visible space for human eyes. So for that reason we don't have the space, but we have alignment and the content properties. So let's go ahead and just pick a simple ZStack, and we're gonna open and close curly braces, and basically we're gonna start creating our child views. Okay, so for the child views, first thing that we need to do is we need to have some sort of view that sits on the back, because when the child views are laid out on ZStack, they are laid out top to bottom, and the topmost item in the code goes all the way to the back. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. If I create a text with devtechie.com and set its font as title, okay, you're gonna notice that nothing changes. We simply have devtechie.com printed on the screen. But if I put another text in here, for example, SwiftUI, notice that SwiftUI is now overlapped on the top of devtechie. Well, we can actually do something better than putting a text. Let's go ahead and put a circle. Okay, and notice that as soon as we put the circle, our text disappeared. Now even if we actually try to set the foreground style as white color for our text, it would not appear because the text is sitting behind the circle. Now if we change these views and put the circle first and then text later, you can see that now the text is sitting on the top of the circle, and this is what ZStack is all about. Basically stacks the content inside basically on the top of each other on the Z space. Okay, all right, so now you've seen basically how ZStack lays out its views. We can actually try out some of the cool things. For example, if you want your view to have certain kind of background other than the white background, you can actually use ZStack to do just that. For example, you can say I want a color.orange as a background. Okay, and as soon as we actually add color.orange, you can see that background has been added, and basically most of our view is this orange color. Now we can ask the color to ignore the safe area, so those two white spaces at the top and at the bottom that you were seeing, they're called safe areas. Basically this is where your system related actions go. For example, at the bottom you have that dash, which actually a gesture, that an indicator that shows you can go back to the home screen. And at the top you have the status bar, which actually shows all the information about the network, the battery, and all those sort of stuff. So basically those two areas are secured, are usually kept with a default setting, but you can default background, but you can override that by saying like, ignore the safe area, bleed through our content, and we'll take care of like, adding the padding and like, make the status bar and every other system related information visible onto the screen. So that's what we are doing. We are saying ignore the safe area. Now ignoring the safe area extends our color like, beyond that safe area limit, so our entire background is now orange. And this is from the common technique that you're gonna find basically that is basically used for like, setting the background. Once again, the safe area is basically the part of important UI elements that Apple has laid out for iPhones or iPads in order to like, display certain information, for example, the notch at the top or home indicator bar at the bottom. Okay, now we are ignoring the safe area. That means like, we are extending our limit, our colors limit to beyond the safe area. That means anything that we want to add, we want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the information that is visible to the user. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about like, things that can go wrong when you have ignore safe area added. And let's go ahead and see this in an example. So let's say if I take this ignore safe area from here, and if I add a ZStack, okay, and I put the text back, and basically let's put a spacer like so. Okay, so as you can see, our devtechie.com is now sitting at the top. Now if we say that we want to ignore the safe area, and this is just for demonstration purposes, if we are saying we ignore the safe area, basically our content will basically also be pushed up. Now this right here is our responsibility now to handle, since we are actually deciding to ignore the safe area. Now in order to overcome this, you either set the offset, okay, which is offset is about 70 points. So you can like 50 point is basically the safe area height, but he can add a little bit more to like, bring it down a little bit. But yeah, so you'd have to either set the offset, or you may want to add the safe area, ignore safe area, to the color property only. But I want to show you the example of like, what are the things that can go wrong whenever you're ignoring the safe area. So be cautious of those things. Okay. All right. With that, let's go ahead and talk about like, some of the other properties that are like, popular in like that are popularly used with ZStack. So ZStack is great for aligning stuff, like, for putting stuff on the top of each other. For example, imagine if we had a photo and we want to show the title of the photo at the top, it'll work perfectly in those scenarios. All right, so what I've done is basically I've added a logo, a DevTechie logo in the assets DT dark, which looks something like this. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use that inside our ZStack. Okay, so what we will do is I'll cut this, and we're gonna put an image. And we're going to use new extension image resources to fetch DT dark into the and onto the screen, and then we're going to basically apply a resizable modifier to resize our image, and we can also scale to fit. Okay, so our image is nicely fitted onto the screen. Okay, now if we want to add text on the top of this, if we add it right now, it's gonna appear, but it's not gonna basically let's see, splash title. It's gonna appear, but it's gonna sit on the top, so which may look a little bit different. So like, it may not look that good. Like, in this case, because we have a text on the image and text on the top, is not looking that great. Okay, so how can we actually show that text at the top, devtechie.com, a little bit more clearly? Well, we can actually use the material on the top. Okay, so what we can do first is define the frame with max width as infinity. Okay, and then we can set the background for this guy to be thin material. Okay, so as soon as we set the background as thin material, or let's set it as ultra thin material. Okay, so as you can see now that not only our view is our background view is visible, but our foreground view also shows the information. Okay, now this is called layering. You're actually creating layers of views by putting them on the top of each other. Okay, now the reason I wanted to create this example, because I want to show you the alignment property next. Okay, so as you saw earlier, that ZStack can set the alignment for its child views. We can actually override the default alignment by simply specifying the alignment that we want. And ZStack alignment takes many different options. First one is bottom, so let's go ahead and take a look at bottom. And in this case, as you can see, the text that was sitting on the top actually moved at the bottom of the ZStack. Now, one thing that you're gonna notice that only the text is basically moving downward, not the image. The reason is because our ZStack's boundary is only up until the largest element present inside, basically largest child element present inside the ZStack. So for example, if I create border.orange, and let's go ahead and see if we can actually set the width as 10 points, you're gonna notice that your border is only up until where the image is. So ZStack takes only the space it needs to render all of its child views. That also means that ZStack is going to contain everything. So largest element will define the total height and width of the view itself, of the container itself. So that means that whenever we have these child elements, whichever is the smallest will be the one moving around, affected by the alignment properties. Okay, so we can set the alignment of this text as top, and the view will move at the top. Okay, I'm going to set this border to be 2 points so we can see rest of the things clearly. Okay, and I'm gonna move this to the bottom. Okay, now if you had a view that was small, essentially it was not taking up the space as the whole width, for example, we can actually mimic something like that by commenting the width. Then we can actually set a little bit more. We can get a little bit more control over how we want to or where we want to show these elements, or how we want all the elements to be aligned. So if we had 50 elements, all of the 50 elements would align from this bottom leading and would spread out. Okay, now in order for us to see this example a little bit better, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a whole bunch of images, or rounded rectangles, and we're gonna stack them, and then we're gonna see how they are behaving whenever we change our alignment properties. So let's go ahead and create some rounded rectangles with corner radius of 20 points. So I'm going to start with a fill of orange dot gradient. Okay, And let's go ahead and comment this one out. And I also want to have some padding around the view. Alright, now we're gonna add more rounded rectangle, and this time around we're gonna set the frame with width as 300 points. Okay, and let's go ahead and give this a mint color gradient. Alright, and let's go ahead and also define the height of this guy as 400. Let's go ahead and create more. We're gonna create one for maybe a pink color. Let's go ahead and give the other rectangle width as well. So we're gonna give this 400 and height as 500. Okay, and this one as 200 and 300. Okay, let's go ahead and create one more, and we're gonna create indigo, and let's give width of 100 and height of 200. Okay, so now watch what happens when we actually change these alignment properties, and we actually get to try pretty much all of them. So let's go ahead and try the top, and you're gonna notice that all the views have moved top. Okay, and if we set the, let's set top trailing, it should end up like right here, and all the views should appear from here. Now if you want to add like more special effects, just add shadow as well to these. Okay, and let's see the effect of shadow. So all of the views should actually have their own shadow, and now we can actually see how it looks in center as well. Okay, so as you can see that all of the views are basically aligned according to the alignment property that is defined inside the ZStack, and that's basically what ZStack is essentially all about. You've got the alignment choices that you have are center, leading, trailing, top, bottom, top trailing, top leading, bottom trailing, bottom leading. Okay, so I would highly encourage you to try out all of those and see how they actually work for your scenario. Now once we have learned about all the basic things of SwiftUI, we can actually start building apps, and you're gonna see how these container layouts and different properties help us build really amazing user experiences with ease. Okay, all right, with that we've reached the end of this video. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in another video. Thank you.